Make sure the washer is disconnected from the wall outlet. Remove the front panel. Remove the top panel holding screws. Pull the top panel forward like 3 or 4 inches. This is where the door switch wires are connected to the wire harness. Disconnect the door switch wires from the wire harness. Set your multimeter to read ohms. Take a reading between the 2 terminals on the switch plug. With the door closed, the reading should be 0 ohms. If the reading is infinity, the switch is bad and you will need to replace it. To replace the door switch, lift the top panel and lean it against the washer like this. Let me show you how the switch works. When you close the washer door, the door switch striker pushes on the actuator button, pushing the actuator and turning the door switch on. To remove the switch, you will need to remove these 2 screws. After removing the screws, grab the switch and pull it right out. Grab the new switch, set it in place, and install the holding screws. Connect the door switch to the wire harness. Install the top panel and the holding screws. Install the front panel, and that's all it takes to check and replace the door switch. Disconnect the washer from the wall outlet. This is how the magnetic door switch looks and where it's located. Let me show you how it works. When the door is closed, the switch is turned on, and when the door is open, the switch is turned off. To gain access to the door switch wires, you will need to remove the front panel. After removing the front panel, you will need to cut the switch wires from the wire harness like this. Strip the insulation from the end of the wires. Attach the switch wires to the 2 probes on your ohms meter. Set your multimeter to read ohms. With the washer door closed, the reading should be 0 ohms. If the reading is infinity, the door switch is bad and you will need to replace it. To remove the door switch, you will need to push on this tab to release the switch. Stick your left hand like this, and with a screwdriver push on the holding tab until it pops out, and then remove it. To install the new switch, put the wires through the hole, set the switch in place, and push down until it snaps on. I like using shrinking tube for insulation. Put the shrinking tube on the wires, splice the wires, then solder them together. Slide the shrinking tube into position and use a mesh to shrink the tubes. Like this. You could also use electrical tape. Now all you have to do is put the front panel back, and that's all it is to replacing a magnetic door safety switch. Disconnect the washer from the wall outlet. Remove the front panel. Remove the pump holding screws. Disconnect the fill hoses. Lower the drain hose and use a pan to catch any leftover water from the pump. Remove the drain hose so it won't break when you lay down the washer. Put a piece of rug or a blanket on the floor to protect the washer. Lay down the washer on its back. Remove the holding screws on the bottom panel. Bring the bottom panel forward and let it rest on the floor. Now you need to remove the belt, but before loosening the motor holding nuts, mark their location. Loosen the motor holding nuts and remove the belt. Move the motor to the marks you made before and tighten the holding nuts. To remove the spring clip, use a flat screwdriver. Tap on it until it comes out. Tap on the motor shaft to loosen up the clutch and remove it. This cotter pin on the motor shaft is supposed to line up with this groove on the clutch. Put a little grease on the motor shaft and install the new clutch. Install the spring clip and use the screwdriver to tap it in place. Now put the belt on the clutch pulley and on the right side of the transmission pulley. Turn the transmission pulley clockwise until the belt sets on the pulleys. The belt tension should be okay. Install the bottom panel and the holding screws. Stand the washer up and install the pump screws. Install the front panel, the drain hose and the fill hoses, and you are done replacing the clutch. Disconnect the washer from the wall outlet. Disconnect the fill hoses. Lower the drain hose and use a pan to catch any leftover water from the pump. Remove the drain hose so it won't break when you lay down the washer. Remove the front panel. Look for a broken belt under the motor and transmission. Just pick it up and pull it out. Remove the pump holding screws. Put a piece of rug or a blanket on the floor to protect the washer. Lay down the washer on its back. Remove the bottom panel holding screws. Bring the bottom panel forward and let it rest on the floor. Leave the motor in the position that came from the factory. Clean any rust in the clutch pulley with sandpaper. Also check the gear case pulley, make sure that it's clean. Place a belt in the clutch pulley. Then on the right side of the gear case pulley. Turn the gear case pulley clockwise until the belt is in both pulleys. The tension on the belt should be okay. If you need to get more tension on the belt, loosen the 4 motor holding nuts and remove the belt. Pull the motor up to a higher position and tighten the 4 holding nuts. Place a belt in the clutch pulley. Then on the right side of the gear case pulley. Turn the gear case pulley clockwise until the belt is in both pulleys. Install the bottom panel and the holding screws. Stand the washer up and install the pump holding screws. Install the front panel, the fill hoses, and the drain hose. That's all it takes to replace the belt. Get a good heavy-duty extension cord about 15 feet long. Cut this end off and strip the 2 wires like this. Disconnect the washer from the wall outlet before doing anything else. Follow the wire harness from the motor to about here. Cut the orange, the blue, the violet white, and the red wire from the harness. Strip the end of the wires like this. To make the washer spin, connect the wires this way. The blue and red wires connect to one side of the extension cord. The orange and the violet white wires connect to the other side of the extension cord. Like this. When you connect the extension cord to the wall outlet, the washer should spin. If it don't, the motor is bad. To make the washer agitate, connect the wires this way. Blue and violet white wires connect to one side of the extension cord. Orange and red wires connect to the other side of the extension cord. Like this. When you connect the extension cord to the wall outlet, the washer should agitate. If it don't, the motor is bad. To repair the wires, you need a good crimping tool and some butt connectors. Disconnect the extension cord and prepare the wires to be spliced together. With your crimping tool, Crimp one end of the wire. Then the other one. Make sure that the connection is strong. Continue repairing all the wires until all the wires are repaired. You could add electrical tape for more insulation. Disconnect the washer from the wall outlet. Remove the front panel. Remove the pump holding screws. Disconnect the fill hoses. Lower the drain hose and use a pan to catch any leftover water from the pump. Remove the drain hose so it won't break when you lay down the washer. Put a piece of rug or a blanket on the floor to protect the washer. Lay down the washer on its back. Remove the holding screws on the bottom panel. Bring the bottom panel forward and let it rest on the floor. Disconnect the green ground wire. Press this release clip to remove the harness. Remove the motor wire harness. Before loosening the motor nuts, mark their location. This way you can set the motor on this location again. Loosen the motor nuts and remove the belt. Remove the clutch spring clip and remove the clutch. Remove 3 of the 4 holding nuts. Leave the last one in to hold the motor in place. Turn the gear case pulley clockwise to turn the gear case into this position. Remove the last holding nut and pull out the motor. Grab the new motor and set it in place. Screw in the 4 holding nuts but don't tighten them yet. Move the motor to the marks you made before and tighten the 4 holding nuts. Place the belt on the clutch pulley, then on the right hand side of the gear case pulley. Turn the gear case pulley until the belt falls in place. The tension on the belt should be just right. Install the ground wire and the wire harness to the motor. Install the bottom panel and the holding screws. Stand the washer up and install the pump screws. Install the front panel, the drain hose and the fill hoses, and you are done replacing the clutch. After removing the drain hose and removing the 2 pump holding screws, lay the washer on the floor on its back. Remove the bottom panel holding screws and let the panel rest on the floor. Get a piece of rope about 2 feet long and double it like this. Take the 2 ends of the rope and stick it through the belt, then through the loop on the rope. Pull it and hold it with your left hand. With a 3/4 inch socket wrench, loosen the pulley holding nut. Remove the rope, the holding nut, and remove the pulley and the belt. Remove the broken spring and install the new one. Install the transmission pulley and hand tight the holding nut. Install the belt. Notice that I did not loosen the motor screws. I left them in the position that they were before I removed the belt. Use the rope again to hold the belt in place and tighten the pulley holding nut. Close the bottom panel and secure it with the holding screws. And install the 2 pump holding screws. Set the timer in the spin cycle and pull the knob to turn the washer on. Use a pencil to activate the door switch. This way the washer will spin with the door open. This is the way that the washer is supposed to spin with a good transmission spring. Install the front panel and the drain hose. That's all it takes to replace the transmission spring.